Hello, service learning students. Dr. Everton here, checking in on Thursday in the second week of our class. And my Lord, we've already done quite a lot, haven't we? We're moving very quickly through the materials. So, as you see in the lesson notes that I posted for today, we've entered a new phase of our projects where we're going to start building an actual proposal for a service project. So, this is a very important part of the course. And there's a lot of material to go over, and I know that's the case. And on campus, we generally are able to project the materials on the screen in the classroom and go over them. And then if students have questions, I can call on them, and we can have a discussion and dialogue in class. It's a little bit more difficult to do that online. So I'm hoping this screencast will help us through some of this. And for this part, I want to talk about Chapter 2 in your text, Learning Through Serving, which you will be taking a quiz over today. But what I wanted to go over was just a couple of the key concepts in that chapter as they relate to setting up your proposal and your project, because this is the sort of thing that we would spend much more time going over in a classroom in groups, and raising questions about our projects and trying to answer questions about our project. And as I pointed out in the lesson notes today, you, by virtue of being online, have to work through this pretty much independently. So I wanted to just review a couple of the main concepts in the chapter. The chapter really is focused on getting you set up with dealing with community partners. And there are a couple of important things that are outlined. In your quiz, you will be asked to respond to prompt 2.1, which has you share some of your experiences in service and service learning. So we'll get kind of a background of your experience in this area. And what we're doing is we're building what I call a skills inventory. So this first part of the project, hopefully you're starting to get an idea of what your proposal needs to look like and what a service learning project is. But the main thing we really want to do is to get down on paper and get in the quiz and through reviewing this chapter carefully what it is you're good at and what you would be interested in doing service on this summer. And so these exercises throughout the chapter will take you through elements of this. The first part really goes over what it is like to have a community partner, individual-student relationship, and there's a checklist of expectations and requirements for the community partner and for you as well. And we'll come back to this, and there are elements of these handouts and these ideas incorporated into the actual project, the handout for our first writing assignment for project number 2 report, and your service learning project report proposal. And then for when you actually go and do service, there are elements of this that are incorporated into the next handout you will get when you actually start doing your service and you have to report on that. You'll see that there is what's called a community action report, or an ALPS, Action Learning Plan for Serving. That's in this textbook. That will be incorporated in certain reports. There are a lot of exercises throughout this chapter. It's a workbook. So in the quiz today, I'm asking you to respond to just two of these exercises. One at the beginning that goes over your background and experiences in service, and then one at the end that after you've gone through all these materials, hopefully, and if you've completed some of the additional prompts and exercises on your own, you will be ready to respond to the skills inventory activity on page 32, exercise 2.8. You'll be asked to respond fully to that in the quiz today. And then when I read those on Monday, I'll have a sense for what kind of service projects you might be interested in, and more importantly, where your area of expertise is and where it is you think that you can contribute. That's a very important part of the proposal. As this is an inquiry-guided learning class, we want to make sure that you are picking a project that will sustain project-based learning and we'll tap into the areas and interests that are really germane to you. This is your project. You should really pick something that you're going to learn from and that's going to be interesting and that you can be engaged and energized about. So just a couple of other points from the chapter I want to point out. Whereas on Monday we began this week by going over poverty and homelessness and sort of the socioeconomic issues that are very commonly thought about when it comes to service. Now that we're entering this next phase, I want you to understand that that was just one example of an area that we're exploring, and the book we're reading, The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace, kind of provides more socioeconomic and contextual cultural background that hopefully helps you to see that these are issues that are bigger than really we are, and we're just trying to find ways that we can address them. But your service project does not have to be this huge thing that tries to end poverty. It's important that you understand that we're looking for organizations we can partner with in our local communities and what expertise we can bring. You're college students, so you already bring a certain amount of expertise to the field in your various areas: business, education, music, art. There are things you can do that are special skills or special areas that you've worked on at CSC that you should be trying to determine can contribute to your service project. This is very important. You need to not just do charity work or do service here, as the chapter goes through direct and indirect service. We're asking you to do a project-based service activity that is twofold. It's meant to help people out, but it's also meant to help you in your own education and to exploit the skills and expertise that you have as college students in certain areas and certain majors. So think about, in your area of interest, in your field of study, what are the skills and interests that you can bring to the project, and how can you construct a proposal that will exploit those things. That's what we're doing in our unit today. We're trying to figure those things out and get them down on paper. And then I'll give you two very specific examples. On page 21 in your text, they're discussing direct and indirect service. And they have a section here. Let me find the section here on the page under community-based learning environments. And it says, your service learning course is an opportunity for you to connect academic knowledge with community challenges. Broadly speaking, community-based learning environments can be characterized as two basic types: direct service and project-based or indirect service. In direct service, which is what we will be doing, students work directly with persons served by the partnering community organization. So you will partner with a community organization. That's very important. I'll keep stressing this over the next couple weeks. For example, students might spend several hours a week tutoring non-native language speakers who recently arrived in the United States, or they may interview elderly persons living in a nursing home in order to compile oral histories of their life experiences. I like this example because it brings to mind two elements that occurred recently in courses. So in the section that has some of the student models, you'll notice that there is a proposal from a team of 2 students who worked last spring on a nursing home project, and they visited a nursing home here in Chadron. And one of the students had sort of a background in music, and so wanted to do some projects that were oriented towards that. And in their proposal, they were going to bring their expertise into the project. Now, in a nursing home, of course, you can go in and you can help with the bingo games, and you can sit and chat with the residents and maybe help serve meals, whatnot. But that really isn't the ideal element of what we want you to develop in your proposals. Your proposals should really be getting you to focus on this inquiry-guided learning, so that it's creating projects that relate to your specific area of expertise and your major area of study. So for those 2 students, they had a really fine proposal and they did a nice job with their service, but we were disappointed by the end of the course that they didn't incorporate more of their skill set. One of those students happened to be very, very fond of writing, and we had thought that it might have been great, as they mention in the book, if she could have taken the oral histories of these residents and helped them write their life stories. That's a really common service project. And you see how that would help the residents on one hand, get them talking, give them something to do with their free time. It would give them something valuable at the end. Let's say you have an oral history that they can then have printed off and give to their grandkids and their great-grandkids. That's a really fun and purposeful project. But the director at the nursing home was kind of resistant to that due to what she felt were privacy issues. And I was disappointed the students didn't press that more fully, because what they wound up doing was, helping out with bingo night and actually folding clothes and doing laundry, and that's not really what we're trying to do in this course. You're college students, so your projects should be things that can exploit the areas that you are interested in. So here's an example. I was at a campus in Colorado, in Denver, a month or two ago, and we were looking at their service projects. They have a Center for Service Learning there at Regis University, and I spoke with one of the coordinators, and he was describing how, as in this scenario, there's some tutoring of non-native language speakers, and at Regis they have a Spanish program, and so in the service learning course, the students who are learning Spanish, they don't speak Spanish, they're students at Regis, they're taking a Spanish course, but what they do is they go to homes in the area, and these are areas that are generally in Denver that generally have some socioeconomic pressures, and they meet with these families that are sort of struggling, and what they do is they get a lesson from them on how to speak Spanish, just conversational Spanish, so the family is actually teaching them some basic Spanish, and then when they're done with that lesson, the student turns around and tries to do some lessons for English. You see how it goes back and forth, and it's working that skill set. It's project-based learning. Both sides are getting something out of the deal. It's not just one-way service. It's not charity. That's kind of what we're after in these service projects. So hopefully, after going through Chapter 2, I know it's a lot of material to digest, and having reviewed our handouts for today, you'll have a good sense of what the project needs to be like. And more than anything, I hope that you're getting a sense of what sort of project you might want to, or projects you might want to propose, so that we have a couple to look at, and we can find something that's both doable and something that is fulfilling the course requirements and that is relevant to your area of study. So that's what I wanted to say in relation to the readings and activities for today. The rest of the materials are in the lesson notes, and I'll see you again on Monday. If you have any questions, please contact me.